Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ocean State Aquatics TV, and I have a very fun video for you guys today. I'm going to be talking all about sea stars. So there are many different classifications of sea stars, and there are two that I'm going to be going over today. The first one I'm going to be talking about is the brittle star, and the second one I'm going to be talking about is going to be your more classic tube-footed sea star. So I actually have a really beautiful friend that is living in our live rock tub here at our Coventry store. And I think it would be really cool to show you guys all about him and to show you guys how cool he is, because I think he's one of the coolest creatures that we have in the shop right now. So one of the main purposes of this video is I'm going to be talking about their different feeding strategies. A really cool fact about brittle stars is that they are actually one of the biggest group of sea stars. There's actually almost about 2,000 different species of brittle stars, which is more than any other classification of sea star. Since there are so many different types of brittle stars, there's actually multiple different feeding strategies throughout all the different species. So as you can see, he is absolutely beautiful. He's huge. This is actually a spiny brittle sea star. And what's really cool about these is that he will actively try to hunt for his prey by detecting odors in the water column. So as you can see from all of these spines all over his arms, that he is really good at actively going out and trying to grab a hold of the prey. And how they feed is that they'll wrap their arms all around, kind of like how he's doing to my hair right now. He'll wrap his arms all around the prey and kind of drag it toward his mouth, which is going to be in the center disc here. So these guys are pretty much opportunistic feeders. They will eat pretty much anything that they can get their hands on. That being said, they are not limited to hunting live things in your aquarium, but as long as you keep them well fed with hunks of krill, big pieces of shrimp, maybe some monster mix thrown in there, pretty much if you hold anything on the tongs, they will come out of wherever they're hiding and take it from you with one of their arms, which is really cool. So I've had him out of the water for a little while, so I'm going to go ahead and return him back to our bin. So like I mentioned before, there's about 2,000 species, maybe even more, of different brittle stars. So there are multiple different feeding strategies. So the one I just showed you obviously is going to be an active predator, as you can tell just by the way he looks and all of those spines and just his whole mannerisms. So besides being an active predator, the other two different feeding methods of the brittle star is going to be a deposit feeder, where they're going to go actively seek out detritus and build up on the bottom of the seafloor or in your aquarium and clean up that. And the other one are going to be suspension feeders that will feed primarily on what is floating around in the water column and kind of grab onto that with their feet and eat that way as well. Now moving on from brittle stars, we are going to be talking about the next type of starfish, and that is going to be our chocolate chip sea star. Now chocolate chip sea stars are different from brittle stars, that these are actually tube-foot starfish, so they are in an entirely different group. So unlike the brittle stars that we just finished talking about, the chocolate chip sea stars are actually not reef safe, but that does not go for all tube-footed sea stars. So this right here is what the chocolate chip sea star looks like. So as you can tell, he's a little bit shorter, he's definitely a lot more stockier, and he does not move nearly as fast. He's actually holding on to the back of my hand right now with his little tube feet. Now these guys have an incredible feeding strategy that is completely different from the brittle stars that are going to be active hunters and active predators. These guys are more slow moving. They're going to go up to whatever prey they are targeting to eat, and they're going to wrap their whole body around it. They're going to pry it open if it's going to be some sort of bivalve, and they are going to completely extend their stomach out of their bodies and into the shell that they are trying to eat and completely dissolve the animal basically inside of their shell. They're going to completely dissolve the animal and all the contents inside, absorb all of that nutrients through their stomach, and then suck their stomach back into their body, which is an absolutely incredible feeding method. So in the wild, a lot of these tube-footed sea stars will actually eat a majority of bivalves. So for that reason, the chocolate chip sea star is not reef safe, because they can go after clams, but they can also eat stuff like soft coral, sponges, certain types of worms, such as tube worms, and anything in that nature. So for that reason, the chocolate chip sea stars are not reef compatible. But if you don't have any of those in your tank, these are really great and really fun to watch kind of run around all over your tank. I know that they move relatively slow, but they still move fast enough that you can kind of watch them, and they have a really exciting feeding strategy. If you keep these in the home aquarium, obviously you're not going to have a fresh supply of live clams for them to digest externally, so they will also graze on other stuff in your aquarium, such as different types of shrimp, mysis shrimp, brine shrimp, krill. Clams on the half shell are also another really popular food that people offer. I do feel like if they were hungry enough, they would go after a pellet too, but I would start with feeding other foods first. Another interesting fact about sea stars, and this goes for pretty much all sea stars, is that they actually have regenerative properties. That goes for the tube-footed sea stars as well as the brittle stars. If you cut a leg off, the body can actually regrow that leg. And if you cut them either in half, or if you basically get any part of that central disc in any of the piece that gets accidentally cut off or removed from the star, it can actually grow a whole new body as well. So as long as you have a little bit of that central disc attached to whatever is removed from the star, it has the ability to make 2 stars from 1. That can be a really good feature in the aquarium hobby because a lot of stuff like harlequin shrimp eat the legs of tube-footed sea stars as their primary diet. So if you are keeping stuff like harlequin shrimp in your tank, you are going to have a fresh supply of tube-footed sea star legs on hand. So a lot of people will keep a lot of these sea stars in their sump and will actually remove a leg or 2 here and there to feed their sea stars without throwing the whole star into the tank at once. Kind of makes your food stretch a little bit longer. Obviously, they are not going to regrow a leg in a quick amount of time, so you do want to make sure that you have a backup plan if your shrimp are hungry again and all the legs haven't grown back from your sea star. Sometimes people will have multiple that they will keep in either a separate tank or in their sump or somewhere that the shrimp cannot get, and then constantly be going through the stars one at a time. So that was a really brief overview of both the spiny brittle sea star that we have and the chocolate chip sea star that we have. Those are the only 2 sea stars that we have in the shop at this moment. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully this taught you guys a little bit more about sea stars. If you guys have any other questions about them, or if you want to come in and meet them, feel free to come into our Coventry, Rhode Island location. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hope you guys have a wonderful day. And like always, keep on reefing.